There we
All
go.
right, Zach,
Beautiful.
back again.
We've done it.
All right.
So, welcome to ZK Live. We're going to just pretend like this is starting from scratch.
Yep.
You are the Director of Architectural Finishes at Kirby Perkins, correct?
Yes. Which is a fancy name for meaning we get all the painters in the right places to do what we got to do.
Love it. So how many painters do you guys have?
Right now, 14 in the field, and we have our staff in the shop. We have 2 booths in the shop handling our all our architectural work that comes out of our mill shop.
It's quite an impressive operation. The entire company is unbelievable, and the paint scope that you guys have is unreal. So tell me a little bit about what your job looks like today, and then we'll go backwards and find out how you got here.
All right. Well, you know, as you know, the jobs are changing just astronomically from a scope standpoint and from the work from custom construction into historic restoration. Both of us are dealing with both of those lots. And right now, there's a huge mix of both. We have a lot going on in both historic restoration, which is a one animal, and then custom construction, that work plus the shop. So right now, it's just, as excuse me to say it, but balls to the walls. Our motto, our company motto is bite off more than you can chew and chew like hell. And we're in the middle of that.
Yeah, it's quite an impressive workload from you know, a massive 20,000 square foot custom home to restoring an old mansion that's 150 years old. In many ways, they're very opposite types of work, right? One, you have a beautiful, everything starts from scratch and you get to control everything. And the other one, you're trying to reverse engineer and investigate and replicate. So how did you get into this business?
Well, many years ago, 28 years ago, as I got out of the restaurant industry, when I decided I'm going to have a family, and that industry is not going to be conducive to what I want to be as a dad on nights, weekends, and holidays. Well, little did I know that coming into this industry, that that is still the same. You still got to put the muscle and the time in. But I got into this industry through partnership in landscaping and painting. And as I developed more skills in painting and my partner developed other skills in landscaping, we both kind of parted ways because he hated the finishing part and I didn't like the landscaping part. And that got me into this. And I had my own business for about 8 years and wasn't a very good businessman with it. You know, there's a lot of people that have been through this that are nodding their heads like you are. And, I understood my skill level and knew where I wanted to go, but operating the business and dealing with tax laws and all that was the thorn in me. So once I landed here and was able to utilize the skills of the staff that I was with and my skills, it just brought us to a whole nother level, which is, it's fantastic. This company just allows us to do amazing work on amazing properties and save, historic fabric.
So when you first started, did you start like most of us and just paint whatever someone's going to pay you to paint?
Yeah. When I came in, I was a general painter. We have somebody here that's been here longer than me. His name is Chris, and he hired me. And this guy is like a ninja warrior worker. This guy does nothing for this company but produce. And he brought me in. He had already had a staff. He's brought a number of other people in. And the production painting during the 80s and 90s for our company had to be on pace because we were doing both large historic restoration projects by then and big new houses, and it was time to get it done. And so I came on as a general painter, and then once the crew started to be established and guys were more autonomous. We developed different crews and separated, and I became a project manager, foreman, and then, into my position where I am now.
So you obviously have to have an extreme love for what you do to have excelled the way that you have. What do you think it is that drives that?
I think this company has driven it first and foremost, because you can't go on any better job sites than I have in the last 23 years. I mean, we have restored some of the most iconic architecture in New England by architects that their designs have survived centuries of work. Just being able to do all of that is what drives me.
Yeah, you're like a kid in a candy store,
Yeah, and learning the technical aspects of paintwork, like the guru stuff that you and I love, and getting more involved in the technical aspects is what really drove my passion. I think it was like, is it paint thinner or mineral spirits or naphtha with oil paint? Like, what's the difference? Who cares what you use? And then you start realizing there's a difference. If you have a car and you put crappy gas in it, might not run well, but get that high test naphtha in there and that paint might behave better. And temperature and the technical aspects of painting started driving me of where I wanted to go, because we were doing such high-end work that I realized that I have to bring my game up or I'd be left behind. Technology's changing, production rates are changing, the way architects specify coatings and the way owners are wanting the way their places look, all changed. You have to stay up with that.
Yeah, so you were, I mean, incredibly fortunate to be in a situation where the standards of your company are incredibly high. The expectations of your clients are incredibly high. And the part that makes it all work is the budgets are high too, right? Because you can't do amazing work if no one's willing to pay for it.
Well, that's partly true. To say that the budgets were high and the painters in the end always had a plenty of budget, that's not exactly the case. The rugs are coming next week. You've been here for 3 years and we've seen dirt and concrete. Get the place painted and get the hell out.
I understand.
I mean, that's a standard in the industry, and you and I know that well. Of course, the budgets were never pinched. Our company doesn't allow that. Jerry Kirby started it, and Tom Perkins coming in has just added to it that budget is never a consideration on the job. These guys would rather lose money and have a happy customer than to have it the other way. Profit is never above quality, and that's what's made them successful for sure. The reputation speaks for itself.
Yes, anyone who does not know Kirby Perkins, if you guys are not from the New England area, Rhode Island, yes, you have an unbelievable reputation, and I have to, and that obviously comes from quality. You don't get to work on the types of projects over and over again that you guys have without executing at the level that you do. It's incredibly
fun. It's fun because in the early days when I came in 97, and in the late 90s, we had a team of artisan carpenters that literally would come up and try to find a defect in a putty hole while we were painting, just to say, ooh, that's a little moon there. You're going to get that, right? Just busting on us. And we would be going back to look at their miters going, ooh, is there a 32nd there that I can read? I mean, literally, our company was founded on the best basis of just quality was number one, and there was no other way. And you were proud to work for the company, and the reputation was you work for them. How'd you get in there? So we're all pretty lucky, and the ride continues, and hopefully we can keep this cranking for another number of years. We're 40 years in. I'm good for another 40.
You have the energy for it, man. You have the energy. I think the company culture thing is so huge and has to be good to last 40 years. So it makes a lot of sense to me that.
And it comes from the top. It really does. It comes from the top. These guys have made a culture that is like a family, and that's kind of how we feel. We just we jump on it, and we're willing to do things for them because the way they treat us, we would want to be reciprocal, because our customers, our company, it's all kind of like one thing. We just do your best you can and bang it out. Chew like hell.
It's amazing. And I think I really respect that you got to the point where you realized you didn't want to be an owner, but you loved what you did and you continued to excel. And I think there's probably plenty of people, contractors or painters in this country, that go out on their own because they think that's just what they're supposed to do. And that's probably not the best fit for them. I talk to a lot of guys, and it's the love of craft is not enough to run a business, right? And
no, you have to be good at running the business, and sometimes that doesn't match. It wasn't a match for me.
And I think that you're proof that you can still achieve great success and do what you love and not be the owner of a company. And maybe it is you're in a statistical anomaly that you found an amazing company. But I think there are lots of amazing companies out there, and more people would probably be better served to go work for somebody and do what they do great. And
that's true, but it depends on, it's the support you get too.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. Not only is my company great, but they've amassed a talent pool that is unbelievable. The guys that I work with are incredible, and that's what makes our success. Our whole team is what makes us successful, and it's a really good team in an overall sense of, sure, we're a little irritated at the carpenters still cutting wood when we're getting ready, but we know they're doing the best work. They know we're coming in to do the best work, and my staff is amazing. We're doing amazing restoration work, amazing window work, and amazing new construction. And none of this comes to the company without the boots on the ground. And my team is amazing.
Can you talk? Let's start talking about restoration then, because
okay.
I mean,
I love that. Let's go.
It's the most amazing. We're in a very unique market where you guys are in Newport. There's all these old mansions in Newport. There's a lot of historic stuff to work on. If you move to Kansas, where I grew up, there's not historic restoration going on.
Mm-mm.
There's not that many old buildings.
No.
Let's just broadly talk about what are some of the keys to historic restoration before we get into the details. Like, what are the important pieces of a historic restoration?
Well, I would say generally the first thing is knowledge. There's a lot of people that are going around saying we can do historic restoration, but they don't have the intrinsic knowledge or amount of experience that it takes to understand, to undergo a historic restoration. And part of that knowledge too, and is what as I try to do lectures for collegiate and some public places that I've lectured, is historic restoration doesn't mean always exactly saving what's sitting there. That's more of a preservation. But historic restoration can mean that can be 4 tenets of preservation, restoration, rehabilitation, and the education that the experience that you have can help you understand where you need to be with a client in historic restoration and what their goals are, their risk tolerance, their budget, and where the property needs to be. So the experience and the ability to identify the issues that you have to deal with is paramount.
And so how'd you learn all this stuff? From books? From
both books and experience. I mean, you have to read about architecture. You have to read about design. And I'm not very good at recalling all that, but I will continually go back and read things like the National Park Service, the preservation briefs. I'll go back and kind of look at that, and some of the stuff is aged, but there's a good amount of information there that people can learn from that brings us all on a level playing field about how you treat a historic structure reports, how to do like painting historic interiors, that, there's preservation briefs on that. And not everything is applicable today with the laws and what's changed in our industry. But, that education was amassed through a big effort, and a lot of it is really, really good. So going back to those things kind of helps keep me grounded, keep going back, education, looking at that, making sure that the preservation standards are met on our projects, and then how we teach our own employees and owners alike and architects.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the reverence for the history. Like, you have to care about this stuff because it takes a level of professionalism and passion that is probably not standard across our whole industry.
No.
But when I talk to you, every single time I talk to you, I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know anything. Like, you have such a depth of knowledge, and I have to think and you're telling me you read books and you read and study. I'm not sure if that's a common practice in the painting industry to read and study about what we do.
No, but it depends on where your level is. You want to be a production painter and have 150 guys and bang out jobs, you really don't need to worry about technical preservation briefs from the Park Service. You don't have to be, in the Window Preservation Alliance. You don't have. That's a big tenet of that's a big part of our jobs. But everyone can find their niche. But I think that knowledge is key. So no matter where you're at in the industry, you've got to stay up because it's changing so much. My word, since you've started your business, from 1K to 2K to 3K to the environmental laws that have changed everything from what we can do and spray and work with, you have to. Education is key.
Yeah, it's huge. If you want to be at the top levels, you have to know what's in that gallon. They change the formulas of stuff on us. Yeah. The labels look pretty much the same, but what's inside's different. And yeah, it takes a constant striving to learn. And I share the same passion for learning about this stuff. I mean, we're sitting here talking about painting for the next couple hours because I love it. Like,
it's great. It's great because it does change a lot, and there's a big challenge, and then we have to transfer that down to our teams, which is difficult. There's not much more difficulty than telling a 58-year-old painter who's been using oil-based paint his whole life, you're gonna start having to get away with that. Now, I know you're hanging tough, you're great with your oils. You are so old school, but yes, but it's great. It's that education that brings it down, and I'm trying to spread the word because it's part of what isn't talked about a lot in our industry is the availability for the current young crowd to, like, it's an emerging market is what I say. I think plastering, marble work, painting, a lot of hands-on, dirty hand trades are ready to just rise up. And if someone can come up and become successful and high quality, they're going to write their own ticket.
Yeah.
I really think that there's going to be such a demand for high-end quality craftsmen, plumbers, electricians, plasterers, painters, all that, that it's so far behind that it's gonna catch right up. And if someone's smart and doesn't mind working hard, they can write their own ticket. I don't know. What do you think that too?
Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. There's way more demand for what we do than we could keep up with. And the same with you, right? Like,
yeah,
the factor for me, my company is quality labor. It's not quality clients that want high-end, beautiful finishes.
right.
And every time I find a young person that has that passion to learn and wants to learn, like, we have some amazing apprentices, and they're going to write their own ticket to do whatever they want. They get to work on cool stuff. They get to be compensated well because of it. And if they ever want to go out on their own, they can go anywhere in the country and get a great job or start a company based off of the skill set that they develop.
Yeah, that's very important. That's very important because you're setting standards and showing the industry how you're getting it done, and it's being recognized. And like you said, people that are coming in working for you can write their own ticket if they go somewhere else. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And then my goal as a business owner is to make a place that you never want to leave. So right. I want to bring them in and give them all the skills they could ever have. I want to empower my people to make decisions and to love what they do, and I'm not here to get in the way. But
that's funny because realistically, you're singing the same tune that I saw 23 years ago. I came in and I had my own company and I started jobs and I said, hey, I want to know the budget for this. They're like, why? I was like, because I want to know if I'm making money on this paint job. And the word from the top at Kirby Perkins at that point was, no. You don't worry about that. You just do the very best job you can. And if you need anything, we will give it to you to do that. And we will worry about the money later. Quality and customer satisfaction was always number one. And you're doing the same thing and you're allowing your workers to do the same thing. So you will have people that will develop the same passion I did because you're allowed to do your best work. What more could you ask for?
It scratches the human itch that we have as craftspeople to, I'm so glad you said that. I feel so much better about the future of my company if Kirby Perkins was doing this to start, because that is what I'm doing, because they're crushing it. And if I could ever get to be half as successful as your company, that would be amazing. But that is my same approach. And everyone in my company knows it. It is our culture. All about quality. We'll go look at the budget later. My job is to sell it for what it costs. You go just produce. And quality is paramount. And, that's meant 15 years financially for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's elevated our reputation. It's elevated the culture. And, now hopefully we're starting to make some money to doing it. But it's taken a long road but my passion is in the quality. And it's in stepping back and going, we did this, right? Look at that. Driving down the road and saying, look at that project I did 4 years ago. Man, that's worth so much more than a few more bucks an hour to me and to my people. That the people who fit my company are like that, right? And I think we're all of us craftspeople are like that.
You saw me nodding because it's insane. We go back to some jobs and I walk in the door and I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, we did this, and we have our conference room and we have a little rolling screen of some pictures and we're having meetings and we're waiting for stuff to start and stuff's scrolling across. And I'm like, really? And I'm sure the company has had its shares of up and downs, and I, of course, know of some, but everything, the quality was always at the top of the triangle. It's amazing. as we stand back and look at stuff, and we want to start analyzing return on effort, and we're trying to like kind of like, you know, come into the new age of construction, the new age of incredible amounts of paperwork and documentation. You know, people thought, oh, we're going to go into a paperless world. It's the opposite. But to be able to handle all that and put out the quality work we do, you walk away every day just feeling a great sense of satisfaction. So, you know, I'm with you on that, because when you're proud, when you go home and you're happy and you go home, there's no better feeling.
That's what, you know, it's all about is that sense of accomplishment and feeling good about what you do, because then when you come to work and that's what you get, then you're a better person to be around in all the other time that you have that is not work.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
As an employer, that's my goal, is to like give people a great place to come to work so they go out into the world and they're great, happy, positive people, not miserable people who hate their jobs, who are then negative to their family and friends. And there's so much to be said for just like for loving what you do and getting to be, I mean, we're so lucky, you know.
Yeah, we are so lucky. Like, you know, saving the historic fabric of the nation and getting paid for it.
Crazy.
What the hell else could I do?
Speaking of that, let's talk about Carter's Grove and this insane project that God, I wish I could see it. One day I'll go see it, maybe. Well, probably not, but
well, maybe I can get you in, but
maybe you can get me in. I would love to see it in real life. And so, first of all, just tell us about Carter's Grove, and then I want to get into all the details, and talk about all of the different coatings that you guys went through.
Okay, that part is incredible for sure. Generally, it was a 5-year ago start for us, and we've just finished up pretty much a good amount of the project. There's landscaping work to do, there's farm work to do, there's other work to do on the project, but the main mansion, a true 18th century historic restoration, was completed last year. We've done some other additional modern buildings to support the farm and animals there. It came from a property that went through many owners, and it's well documented. But it was owned by Colonial Williamsburg for a good amount of time. It went into private ownership. We were the ones that were chosen to do the historic restoration on it, and really, it's our crown jewel so far. But an amazing project for, you know, a property, you know, finished in 1755, buildings and land that, you know, survived a ton through, you know, Civil War and Revolutionary War and Indian massacres. So it's a true part of history. It's, you know, one of the biggest historic restorations in the nation in the last few years. And to be a part of that is just, there's no words. There's no words for that.
So what was the first, it was a 5-year project. So yeah. Let's start at the beginning. What were the first coding things you had to do, and how much learning and studying did you have to do in order to make this stuff happen?
Interestingly enough, the first thing that happened was a company was brought in for the owner to do an analysis on the fenestrations, the windows and doors. And they had pulled a number of windows and doors out and started working on them. And the firm was, you know, had a good reputation, and the owner, you know, started them off on a discovery phase, so to speak. And we were brought in just to kind of take a peek during this discovery phase. And what we saw was not our quality. So we kind of indicated, why don't you give us a shot to, you know, take over and do a little part of this discovery and let us see what we can do. Now, you know, we're a New England company. You know, doing a job that big in Virginia was, you know, a large task, but we brought the windows back, and what happened was we ended up, my team did a job on a couple of sets of windows that once they went back down there, it laid the foundation for everything to come, because the owner of our company, Jerry Kirby, understood what we could do and said, we got to get a discovery phase that shows what we can do. It didn't take us long to get that done. And when we brought it back down there and we were presenting it, it was evident that the quality and our ability was what was needed to restore that iconic property. And that's kind of how, that's how we landed the job. We had the ability, we had the quality, and faced with a daunting task of going up against Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. It's a little different than the Newport Restoration Foundation and Newport Historical Society, who we worked with for years and years. But, anytime you're going, in partnership with these, there's criteria to be met, and we were able to go down there and produce something that we were proud of, and it was evident that we were the candidate to start to do the job. It was amazing.
So that first phase, you took some windows and stripped them.
Yep.
What was that?
We did a full restoration. They were antique heart pine sash with a frame that was tulip poplar, and the sills were American black walnut. So that's how the house was constructed in the 1700s. And the sashes, literally, when we used a proprietary process that we use with infrared heat and some oil, and the way we handled it, the sashes came to life with literally no rot. And the previous attempt was torches and hard scraping and messing the wood up, and it was a mess. So we were able to develop a process that showed us that we have incredible antique hard pine sash with no rot. Tenon wedges could be missing, a little bit of damage here and there. We can handle that in our shop. The frames were tulip poplar, approximately 7 by 9 inches solid. So a whole window from the from the brick outside to the inside of the plaster was one piece of wood carved on the inside for the moldings and carved on the outside for the moldings. Incredible. Held together by 2 pegs at the tenon miter joint. Like, the simplicity of the construction, but the quality, it was not to be believed. So once we were able to kind of get our feet wet, and all of the entities involved with easements, Colonial Williamsburg and the Virginia Outdoors Foundation, we were able to show them that we're here to save the house. We're here to save, we can't save a windowsill by putting lead on it temporarily and water still getting in. But we got to do it right. So we sourced antique lumber from around the world. We sourced glass from Europe that would match the cylinder and crown glass that were in the house. We replicated horsehair insulation where we needed to. And just once we got going, it was nonstop train. And luckily for us, the owner that was turning into a private residence, enabled us to do our best work to give the property the grandeur it needed.
That's amazing. So it started off with window restoration, and that process you were very familiar with. You'd done that a lot.
Yeah.
What was the next phase of restoration?
Well, obviously there was an architecture firm and the input from Jerry Kirby, which was, paramount to ensuring success. His ability to understand systems, to understand historic structure, architecture, typical building methods. we're gonna go in there now, and we're gonna we need to, modernize certain areas of the house. We have to adhere to deeds of easement. So his ability to put forth a plan in keeping with the architecture firms and the owner allowed us to make a grand plan for the restoration. And then it was, kind of room by room, fireplace by fireplace. Amazing job on the outside of a Buckingham slate roof being peeled off and put back on with new flashings. Everything done with the standards in mind, with historic restoration standards that we uphold in mind, and with just the overall vision of the owner to restore the property with a true 18th century historic restoration. So that was really what was in our wheelhouse. And once we got down there and started it, we transferred people down here that up here that moved down there to live. We had staff that moved their homes and lived there. Then we had staff from up here that would go down on 3 to 4 week trips and stay in hotels. And then we enlisted local craftsmen, and we got a great group of local carpentry and metal craftsmen. And, amazing. It came together amazingly to allow us to get the job done.
You guys used H.J. Holtz, correct?
We did. Rick Holtz and his team were paramount in our success on that project. I will have to say, I reached out to him in 2014 as we were gearing up to do the project, but I wasn't ready to utilize him until 15 or later. And he was just patient. I reached out to 4 or 5 large painting contractors in Virginia, and some of them were tough to get a hold of, or they didn't have a website, or I couldn't find anyone that I was comfortable with. And I had one conversation with Rick, and I said, we're not ready, but we're looking for someone. And you look like someone we could partner up with. And literally, he would check in and call me every 3 to 4 months and go, I don't want to bother you, just letting you know, if you want to do one room or the whole mansion, I can help you, whatever, just checking in. And I would call him back. We would have a quick conversation. And, it took about 9, maybe 11 months to kind of get going to where we knew, okay, this job is a go, and we're going to need some help. And we had our own staffing there. We had a staff of four painters, and we knew we would need more and local support. And he came aboard and literally brought the people we needed every time. Like that guy, his team produced amazingly. They did the Fine Paints of Europe oil work in a few of the rooms for us, because they were certified. We wanted certified.
12 other master certified Fine Paints of Europe contractors.
Yeah. How many? 13? Yeah. Have you met Rick?
Yes, I've met Rick.
Such a nice guy. His team was phenomenal. No ego. We went through this mansion and needed to strip modern paint coatings from, 12,000 square feet. And we had to remove all that paint. So that's no easy task. We had to bring it back down to the original plaster and start over because too many modern coatings, stuff was failing everywhere. We wanted to bring it back for a true restoration. His team did a ton of that work, along with a couple of staff members from our team too. I can't let that go by. And they just stayed with it the whole time. And in the very end, they were hanging high-end wallpaper. They were doing Fine Paints of Europe oils. They were helping us do woodwork finishing. It was fantastic. Great partnership with H.J. Holtz. That company, for anyone listening that's anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic, anywhere near the Richmond area. You cannot go wrong with them. Honest, hardworking company. Very, very, can't say enough about them.
Very impressively run company. It's like a third generation company. I
Yep.
believe they have
Yep.
like a profit sharing system. The company is run amazingly. They have amazing craftspeople. HJ Holtz on Instagram. Everybody follow those guys.
Yeah, it's great. You can't go wrong with them.
Yes. So what kind of let's tell me about the coatings that are in this restoration. You've told me about some of them. I want to hear about these crazy. What were some of the different types of coatings that you guys did?
Well, obviously, amazingly, because you have different areas on the property, different buildings, different areas in the main mansion. So we went all the way from, well, first of all, let me backtrack. We did field microscopy and micrograph analysis, and that was done by two private companies, one that we hired, one that the architects hired, and also it was done by Colonial Williamsburg. So you had a bunch of teams going in there and doing the little chip and burying it in epoxy and grinding it off and doing UV and all these lighting factors and laser analysis to find out what we had in there, which was really helpful to find out original coatings that were against the bare wood. This owner was really adamant of recreating the finishes, the look, or the ability to have the building restored in the proper way so that it was a true restoration. So that analysis by these companies in Colonial Williamsburg helped us greatly in determining, okay, what are we going to use in the future? So, for instance, we had a company come in to create hand ground paint samples, pretty much grinding paint pigments in oil to recreate finishes and find out what the depth of finish was. The fine paints of Europe work that was done in certain amounts of rooms. In areas of woodwork that was restored, it would be true 17th and 18th century spirit varnishes and stains that I created through, like, I boiled walnut husks, to create Van Dyke crystals, which is a tea stain to make for coloring wood, and then a spirit varnish, and then oil and wax.
Let's go back. You did what to walnut shells?
Well, Van Dyke crystals is and you can buy them commercially, is a product that you make a tea with, and it's made out of walnut shells. So it's a natural stain that was done way back in the day. So, as I research stuff and, I go through TPS and, it's what we like to do. We like to be true to the nature of it. Like, let's find out what the heck did they use. That guy was one guy was out in the yard mixing white lead into his paint, and the other guy doing woodwork was boiling his walnut shells. The mason was burning oyster shells to make lime. That's how it went in the day. So our goal is always to try to mimic some of that stuff. We're not going to put lead on the house and endanger the family, but in this project, we really wanted to step it up and make sure we were really authentic on a lot of finishes. So as I read about certain finishes, using a walnut tea stain was part of my sampling process. And amazingly enough, on antique heart pine, I used oil-based stains, I used glycol-based dyes, I used the walnut tea stain. And in the end, the votes were kept coming in. What's that? I'm like, that's 17th, 18th century recipe of walnut tea. and it kind of like, that's what everyone gravitated to. The owners loved it. It was typical for the period. So, that's kind of where we got started in a lot of those mixes. And then many historic components of the house you really aren't allowed to alter. So we had to just kind of do basic touch-ups with utilizing other, somewhat modern formulas for just little touch-up stuff. But generally, all the areas that we milled, created, built, and installed, the mantra was, let's do it with historic finishes. So shellac and wax we used a lot, oil and wax we used a lot, spirit varnishes, and
spirit varnish?
Basically alcohol based. So either a pale or a garnet shellac would be used. So spirit varnish is essentially alcohol based. So it was great.
Which is how you take the shellac flakes and dissolve in pure 200% alcohol.
In alcohol, and then depending on the amount of cut you want, it's a per weight ratio, and then you strain it, and then you can dilute it as you need it. My stuff was very light. I didn't need a heavy cut. I wanted to be light because I knew it was going to be a lot of oils and waxes on top. I used spirit varnishes in this project a lot for sealing the wood and locking in color.
So you would
but shellac is just a great product to use, and that I think people are getting back to. French polish. I did a lot of French polish on crown moldings because you can go fast with French polish on something like crowns and certain flat surfaces, and it just creates a super thin but high gloss, old fashioned furniture finish. So we love to utilize that.
And so you would go tea stain, shellac, and then wax.
Yep. Or possibly oil varnish rubbed way back and then wax. So, and I would use I would color the wax so that depending on how far I wanted to rub back and how much I wanted to burn of edges, the color of the dark wax would get in crevices or get in burned edges to create a depth that would be typical for woodwork that's been manipulated over 150 years and gets that aged look. So not only was it the goal to utilize period finishes, but recreate the period look.
So you were putting new stuff in, and you needed to make it look like all the existing old stuff.
Yes. In many cases, we don't want to ever recreate. The mantra with historic restoration too is you never want to do a false sense of history. But in areas where we would either match something up or areas that weren't part of the 18th century restoration, but were part of the rehabilitation of the other parts of the building, we utilize those methods to create a seamless flow to the building, but we weren't encumbered by saying we could only use these products. We understood that we can use what we need to do, what our skill level would be to make it look like this is the same as the original staircase that was in the 1700s. And no, it's not. This stuff is 3 years old. The wood was antique, and we sourced it from around the country, but we're able to kind of match things up and tie it in. So that,
what always bothers me, I was actually watching the new season of The Crown last night for a little bit with my wife.
Yeah.
When you see on television and movies now, they want to show a building is old by having it look crappy. that kill you? It kills me. I'm like, there's no way the king and queen lived in a house that was not maintained.
No.
I always, every time I watch these old shows, I'm looking at the finishes in the background, and they'll show a door that's like all weathered and looks like crap. And you're like, there's no way. So,
but wait, that's the biggest market there is right now. That's the modern market. Everyone wants that. Give me that aged door.
But it's like there's a difference between like aged and then like not maintained.
Yeah, yeah.
Like these beautiful old homes, it's not like nobody ever maintained it. So
No, they maintained it.
yeah,
They waxed it up.
yes, it still looks nice. But I remember you telling me something about sword marks on the hand on the rail.
Well, that is, you know, an unconfirmed story, but the gist of the story is that during the Revolutionary War, there was a sword fight between revolutionary soldiers and colonists on horseback in the main stairway. And there's major chop outs. Like you couldn't do it with a small knife. You would need something very large and heavy to take a chunk out of. And this mahogany, this is not mahogany, I'm sorry. It's a walnut handrail that is of 4 pieces on the main trunk. And when it comes down to its termination, it transfers from 4 to 8 to about 16 layers of handrail to turn it all at the end. So it's just, you know, the craftsmanship is beyond belief. The carved flowers underneath the treads, just everything about the whole craftsmanship of that property is insane. But there's big cutouts, and at the very end is a piece of metal that's jabbed into the wood that has remained. And the lore is that's the sword tip of during the battle, like the tip of the sword. So you don't think we were going to mess with that? Oh no.
No way.
No way. So whether or not that's true or not, who knows? But the lore is a horseback sword fight on the grand staircase.
Like a picture. I feel like I have a picture in my head that I saw. Did you in that book because you guys have this amazing book about this restoration, yeah, right? I have this vivid memory of a picture of a guy on a horse. Yes.
No, that's not in this book.
It's in my own head. That story locked itself in my head, and I have a picture of a guy on a horse swinging a sword and hitting.
It truly an incredible property. There's a lot of stories. I'm trying to see if here's the walnut staircase right here. And this won't do it justice, but there it is right there. At the bottom, and I forget, and of course I'm so bad on architectural component memory, but the bottom of these long staircases that terminate in that circular post, without a post, it's individual balusters going around and there's a name for that. But at the very top of that handrail at the bottom of the staircase, it was, it's still there to this day. And
all that stain grade right now wasn't that a lot of that painted when you started?
Yes. The analysis of the house showed that all the paneling, and which was typical, we certainly didn't, we didn't dispute that, would all have been painted in that time in Virginia. So over time, it had been painted in different owners came through and painted it, stripped. It had been painted and stripped many times. And in fact, during the centennial, it was painted red, white, and blue with like carvings of the wood, red, white, and blue, like woo-hoo-hoo. So, much to the dismay of many people who understood, good Georgian architecture. I'm sure they didn't like that. But through the field microscopy and analysis, we knew what the original finishes were for the house. The grand staircase, which is made of walnut, it was under easement to not be altered. So, of course, we protected that thing with 3 layers of plywood the day we got there. and uncovered it, you know, at the very end, and that thing was cleaned up and brought back to life. But the paneling, that picture that shows all that woodwork as waxed and dark, was painted back to the original color that was developed by field microscopy by Colonial Williamsburg and the other firms. So it was all restored to what we knew to the best of our ability was original fabric.
So when we talk about period finishes, that is like handmade stains and shellac coatings. Are there other period finishes that?
Well, certainly the painters made their own finishes in those days. You know, those guys, the guys that were there were using their own titanium dioxide, using their own earth pigments, their own animal blood, you know, white lead, oils, turpentines, boiling stuff up, very dangerous, very crazy stuff. So, you know, in that day, in the 1750s, it was typically the painter came and it was his recipe. It's like the chef coming to cook dinner. You don't ask him what he's putting in that sauce. You just enjoy it. Yeah. So, again, we trying to replicate the finishes as best we can with modern and non-toxic finishes was our goal. But the finishes ranged from oils, milk paints, lime washes, certainly lime washes in farm areas because of their antibacterial properties and fungicidal properties. You know, we utilize lime washes on the property here on another building to try to stay true to form, and because part of the structure was underground, and you know, it's great. It's a great thing. It actually removes carbon dioxide from the air, cleans the air. So, you know, period finishes, not only do they look great, sometimes they're actually really good.
Yeah, we figured stuff out a long time ago.
Yeah, we did. I want to I'd really like to get some more of that into the market. Lime finishes, mineral finishes, and lime finishes are great to work with, very healthy, renewable, and they're acidic, yeah. but or alkaline, but they there's no chemicals that you're not dealing with petrochemicals. It's natural. It goes great over any organic surface, brick, plaster, even wood, and the properties of some certain lime wash paints. It's good stuff. I'm trying to get that out there to have people utilize more of that, because they can do it on existing finishes with a proper mineral-based primer. They can change over a room to that. So people that have concerns about biology, stuff in the air and clean air, it's an option for them.
Yeah, I feel like lime-based coatings, mineral coatings, they're starting to make a bit of a comeback.
Yeah.
You guys did that beautiful house on Indian Avenue with all lime wash on the outside, right?
Yes.
And was that the Roma Bio stuff?
No. And that was a combination of it's a proprietary finish that we developed, because the true lime wash may have created a pH situation for very delicate gardens on the house. And with the amount of work we had to do and the amount of opacity that the owner wanted on that brick, it wasn't like a light coating. The masons, and when we got together with the masons, they were concerned with runoff from that clay roof and that brickwork, that it could do some pH changes for the delicate gardens that they were putting in. So we used a combination method that allowed us to use kind of modern pigments with mineral, and we were able, through experimentation, got to a level where we knew we could do it, but it wouldn't create a pH situation that runoff was going to change the gardens. So it's a great look. I've used it a ton. It's kind of spread, and it's a good combination. There's nothing wrong with pure lime wash on substrates, but it's a consideration if there's certain delicate gardens and certain in certain plants and runoff on other surfaces that it may stain.
Can you talk to me about vegetable oil putty?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, but I saw it in a post and I need to know more.
I make it. No, I don't. Well, true vegetable oil putty, typically was linseed oil. We're using a product now by Sarco. Have you used Sarco putty?
I don't think so.
Sarco is a manufacturer of a couple different types of natural putties that we use, and there's one line that they use that is for mill shop work only, type M, and then they have another one called Dual that is utilized for exterior work that's in situ. You do it in place, and that putty also can be used for metal sash. And we actually, strangely enough, last year and now going into this winter, we have two projects with full steel sash that we have to pull the glass and reglaze. So we'll be using Sarco putty for that. So it's a true, and that's, I believe, there's 3 oils in that. It's safflower oil. It's vegetable oils. So they make their proprietary blend. They put it in there. It takes a while to dry, so you can't just glaze a window and 2 days later it's skinned and painted. We learned the hard way, and I know you're one like us that are not afraid to say, "Oh, we screwed that up."
Yep.
And we've done that. We've painted it too early. We're rushing. We're gonna get these windows back in, and they don't skin up properly, or the paint skins on top and wrinkles, and so you got to let that stuff properly cure. But it's a good slow drying oil putty, and you use enough slow drying oil paint that it's got to dry.
Yeah.
You can't rush it.
Nothing you can do to make it faster.
No. So
that's what you use for window glazing. Then is that,
yep.
And that's like a 7 to 14 day.
Yep. Depending on airflow, like when we need to push it, you get heavy, real good velocity, good airflow over it. It'll kick earlier than that. We can get maybe 8-9 days. Also depends on the size of the rabbit.
Yep.
If some old windows got a big old fat glazing bead, and it takes a little while longer. Some of the colonial architecture in Newport with this small, typical 20 over 20 double hungs, they have a small rabbit and it's got a small glazing profile. We might be able to get 6-7 days out of that. So we're always pushing it.
I know.
But
say, hey, let me just do all this work and go put these windows in the corner for 2 weeks and just.
I know, it's the worst. You got them sitting, they're done, and the contract is done, and all you need to do is finish coat. So you're literally 10% away from being done and charging it out, and no, you got to wait. So, but true oil putty is we probably have 700 sash in the last 10 years, and we have 200 coming up right now that are just on our doorstep, and we have about 30 or 40 metal sashes. So I got a team of guys that do sash.
Yeah, I feel like you guys probably have some unbelievable capacity to glaze windows quickly. and for some reason I can't hear you.
You there?
There you go.
Yeah.
You guys can crush some glazing of windows, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. We can bang them. We can bang them.
Guys,
It's perfect. I got guys that I'm like, all right, literally, it doesn't have to look like a profiled piece of ASIC. These guys do putty that are like, you can't tell it's putty.
you know what? I would love to see some Instagram time lapse of puttying a window. I think that would go viral, and I would watch it 500 times.
Good to know. Good to know. I should do that. That's, you know, that's part of the thing too. We do so much amazing stuff at the end of so many jobs. I'm like, damn, I should have videoed that, or I should have had that, you know, I should have had that documented more and had more pictures. And it's like, nope, I didn't do it.
Your company should just have an in-house photographer, videographer that just documents the projects every day, because the amount of unreal content you guys are producing, it's unbelievable, the type of the projects that you guys are on. And you'll have, I don't know how many projects you have going on at once, but it's a lot. And
let me look at the board. 22.
22 unreal, either crazy custom homes or insane, like that house we looked at today. Like,
yeah,
if people could see, you know, maybe I'll post a picture on my story. Maybe, no, I probably shouldn't. But the inside of that house we were at today, the level of millwork detail.
Yeah.
The height of the ceilings, the amount of picture framing, the size of the moldings. And of course, you just walk up and you're like, what was the architect's name?
George Champlin Mason.
George Champlin Mason. Everybody,
we could recognize it as soon as we walked in. I'm like, the brackets, the clapboard, the fat balustrade on some of the stuff, the lattice, and then going in and seeing the inlay floors. I'm like, oh yeah. And actually, that's not confirmed. I'm still guessing, but I bet if I look it up, it's there.
But I mean, that scale, that level of detail, the craftsmanship. We were in that place. You can't believe how much millwork there is. You know, and you were just like, yeah, you know, you've seen this a million times. It's amazing. You know, we played that game of how long to paint this room, and I don't even have, I can't even, like, I don't have an off the cuff thing to say. I don't have that type of experience, and you're just like bang, 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 because you guys get to live in that world and do that type of work. It's so freaking cool.
It really is, and that was an exemplary example of amazing architecture by who I believe would be George Champlin Mason. I mean, like you said, the amount of millwork, but how it was put together, the plaster relief stuff, and the flooring, the scale of the rooms. I mean, think about it. There's going to be a new owner coming in, and the house is going to get emptied out. Can you imagine? We walked in there and it's furnished. If you walk in that house empty, you're looking around going, how do you even furnish this?
I was like, the amount of work the people who are moving out have to do to take all their stuff out. I mean, it's unbelievable.